Hello and welcome to Shannon Gardens. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Now, if you caught last week's video, then you'll know that I am posting on a new date starting in 2025. And instead of posting on Thursdays, I'm now posting on Sundays, at least for the time being anyway. So thank you guys so much for joining me in today's video and my first new Sunday post of 2025. So in last week's quick video, giving everyone an update on my new schedule, I also mentioned that we may be having winter weather coming through Georgia, some snow and ice, and we did indeed actually have that weather come through, which is quite unusual for us. So I thought in today's video, I would share with you guys some of the things that I do to help prepare my garden and my plants for winter weather and for freezing temperatures. So with that, I thought I'd start with the first thing that I always think about doing, and that's watering my plants before the freeze hits. So generally the day before the freezing weather comes through, I will go through in the warmest part of the day and water my plants at the base of the plant. So I try not to get the leaves wet or anything, but I try to water at the soil level so that they're nice and well watered. Now, for years, it really seemed counterintuitive to me to water plants before a freeze came in, because I always thought, isn't that going to freeze the roots and therefore kill the plant? But actually, watering helps provide those roots with insulation and with the warmth that they need. So it actually acts as a protective barrier against those freezing temperatures. So it's something that I incorporate, or I try to remember when I'm going around and preparing my plants for the freezing weather that's coming in. Now, I also cover my plants with frost protection covers and with frost protection jackets. The covers I've had for a couple of years and have used them, and they've worked out really well. I usually get the larger sizes and have a couple of them so I can fit as many containers underneath as possible and kind of group them all together to help facilitate that warmth, and then cover them and tuck that cover underneath the pot, or I can stake them, whichever way I choose. Usually I just tuck it under. And then I also got the jackets, which is the first time that I've tried that just this year, and it literally looks like a little plant jacket. It's something that you put over the top of the plant, and it has a zipper, and then it gathers at the bottom as well to help keep that in place. Now, I'll share with you guys a little bit later some footage that I took when I was taking all of the covers and the jackets off the plants, so you can see how the plants fared and how they looked after. And I'll tell you guys too a little bit later in the video a couple of things that I would do differently from this last freeze into the next freeze, which coincidentally enough is next week. So stay tuned for that as well, and I'll let you guys know what I would change. The plants I chose to cover with those jackets are more standalone containers where they had plants that were more upright. You can buy different size freeze jackets for your plants. I chose the camellia because it's still blooming, and I really wanted to protect those flowers as well as some of the buds that were left. And then the viburnum has a lot of buds coming in that I really wanted to protect against the snow and the ice. So that's the other one that I chose to cover on its own. Now, with the covers and with the jackets, I made sure to keep them on the plants until the temperatures rose above freezing, and then I uncovered those plants. But I left them at the base of the container so that I could recover them easily in the nighttime when the temperatures went below freezing again. It didn't look all that great during the day. It certainly wasn't attractive to have all this fabric laying about, but it's really convenient and really worked out well when I needed to cover them off and on through the day and then the night as well. Now, one other thing that I did end up using to cover my plants, just in my last ditch effort of what do I have here that I can cover some of these plants with, I ended up grabbing some planting bags that I had from last summer that I planted my tomatoes in, and just threw those on top of my lavender and on top of my coral bells. Now, these bags are not meant for frost protection, but I figured, what the heck, I might as well give it a whirl. I don't want to lose these plants if I can at all help it. And they actually worked out. So they weren't meant for that, but they ended up working out well. And I'll show that to you guys later on in the video as well. So another thing that I did was I brought in my hanging plants, which are the two here. And I just brought those into my garage, making sure to keep them as far away from the garage door as possible. I don't have a lot of space in my garage, garage, so I can't bring in as much as I would like to, but I was able to find a small place just to tuck these plants in. And I really wasn't concerned so much about the violas. I thought that they would be fine in the weather, but it really was more the Dusty Miller. And I'd love for that to last as long as it can. So I went ahead and brought those in, and actually, to be honest, forgot about them and just remembered them a couple of days ago, but they did fine. They lasted in the garage, and I've brought them back out here now that our temperatures are above freezing again. So that was another thing I did. And another thing that you guys can keep in mind is to bring in whatever container plants you can, maybe into your garage, but just make sure to keep them, if possible, away from that garage door so that they're not exposed more to those colder temperatures by that garage door. So I'm going to go ahead and share with you guys that footage that I have of removing the freeze cloth and the freeze jackets, and just show you how those plants looked when I removed them. And then I'll come back here and share with you guys a couple of things that I'm going to do differently when the next freeze comes through to help protect my plants even more. All right, you guys, so I'm going to check in on my camellia. I've got a freeze protection jacket that I placed on the camellia, and I'm just going to check on it and see how it did. So let me unzip it over here. Now you can see it's got a drawstring down here, and then it's actually got a zipper. And so I'm just going to unzip this and check it over and make sure everything looks good. And actually the sun's out today, so I'm going to let it get some sun and have the airflow. But this is a pretty breathable material from what it feels like. So it should be pretty good. Let's take a look. All right, let's see here. I've got some browning here on some of the blooms, and you can tell there's a little bit of brown there as well. Y'all can tell I did not take my Christmas lights off, but it actually has been looking pretty cute. So I've been inclined to leave them on, but they still have buds, and the leaves overall look pretty healthy and protected. I don't see a lot of damage, maybe there at the top. And I imagine that's probably because it had ice sitting on the top. As well, so maybe it was touching the plant. But all in all, I feel like it looks pretty good. So let's go on and take a look at some of the other plants. Now here's one of the plants I have covered up with my frost prevention blanket, which is actually quite long. You can see that I've trailed it all the way over there, and then I've got another one beside it. This is the Daphne underneath, and unfortunately I did not secure it on this side, or maybe it blew up, I'm not sure. But nonetheless, let's take a look. Okay, this is looking promising. It has a lot of buds, you guys, and actually it looks pretty good. Oh, this is exciting. So yeah, you can see that it's got all the buds there. It's got a little bit of damage, but not too bad. All right, I'm pretty happy with this. I'm going over to my loropetalum. I really wanted to protect that and my snapdragons. So I've got my loropetalum here. That's looking pretty good too. It looks a little damaged. And again, that might be because the ice was weighing it down and touching. But honestly, overall, it really doesn't look that bad. It looks wet, but it doesn't look that bad. And then here are my snapdragons. And honestly, all in all, these look pretty nice. These are just snapdragons that I put in a container that were coming back from last year, and I think that they look really great. They're leaning over a little bit, and that's probably because of the weight of the blanket. I think next time I would definitely put something in here to keep the blanket off of the plant. I was hurrying up when I was covering these, but it doesn't look any worse for wear. So this looks really, really good. And now I'll go check on the viburnum. I wanted to show you guys this. This is a growing bag that I bought last year, but it's kind of this felt. I don't really know what kind of material it is, but it's breathable. And so I wanted to cover my coral bells, and look, you guys, it protected it. So honestly, at that point, I was just trying to find anything that would protect some of these plants that I really didn't want to die. And yeah, this one looks great. And so I'm very happy. Again, I have my Christmas lights still in there. But I'm very, very happy with that. And that was just a growing bag that I just tossed on top at the last minute. All right, and then last but not least, I have another plant jacket on my viburnum. You can see there's a lot of ice still left up here, but the majority of it's really melting at this point. Ooh, and falling on my head. So I'm gonna make this quick. This one had so much ice on it, I actually couldn't unzip it, but I pulled the bag off and it looks pretty good. I think for the most part, you can see all the buds here. I think it looks pretty good. So I'm just gonna keep an eye on this. Some of them look a little wilted, but all in all, they seem pretty intact and the plant itself looks nice. So gonna keep an eye on this one. There's a little bit of damage here, but not too much. And this one I would say got covered by ice the most out of all the plants because it's a little more in the shade. So we'll see how it goes, but I think it looks pretty good. All right, you guys, so I thought I'd show this to you as well. These are my elevated cedar craft planters that I have, and I got the covers for the top in the wintertime. And these just zip up, and so I've already unzipped them, and I'll show you guys how it looks inside. I've got my collards here, so everything's nice and healthy. I've got my thyme here, and so these really have worked out quite well for me. I've used them for several seasons now, and they just worked out really nicely in keeping everything nice and warm during the cold winter months and lasting a bit longer than they would if they were just planted outside without any cover. And to show that to you guys, and I'm actually going to open these up right now because the sun's out, so I'll let the sun get directly to these plants. But yeah, everything looks pretty good. And I did want to show you guys too that on these cedar craft planters with the covers that I have here, I actually use these clamps that I got from Amazon, I believe, just to help hold them down. We get high winds here sometimes, and I have had the covers blow off. So I just clamp them down with these heavy duty clamps, and that seems to do the trick, and they haven't gotten anywhere yet. So I use probably about 4 or 5 all the way around the perimeter of the cedar craft planters. All right, you guys, so we're back. What would I do differently? Well, the first thing that I would do is I would put stakes in around the plants that I'm planning on covering. I completely forgot about that when I was putting the covers on, and the cloth actually touched the leaves in some areas that I showed you guys and damaged those leaves. So I'm gonna make sure in next week's freeze that I am putting stakes in around those plants to help keep the cloth off of the leaves so that they won't get damaged. Now, as far as the stakes themselves, I'm just going to use whatever I have. I do have some stakes. I may even use tomato cages that I have, just anything to help keep that cloth off of the plants. So I'm just going to utilize whatever I have laying around. Other thing that I wish I had had time to do before the freeze came in, and I'm hoping to do before the next freeze, is more with my in-ground plants. I noticed the day before the freeze actually came through that a lot of my plants were a little thin with their mulch, and I wished I had had time to go through and really mulch those plants to help protect them, and particularly some of the plants that have more shallow roots. I wish I had been able to go through and do that, and I'm going to try to find time to do that before the next freeze. So that's another thing that if I had time, I would definitely go through and make sure that my plants in ground were protected as well. A lot of my focus this time, with the exception of the viburnum, was protecting the plants that were actually in containers. So that's something that I will try to make more time to pay attention to before this next freeze comes in. Lastly, I did want to include some video of the snowfall itself. I made sure to feed the birds right before the snow hit, and we had so many cardinals, which are always so pretty with that red coloration against the snow. And we had so many other birds coming to the bird seed and to the suet that I put out. So I'll share that with you guys now and then meet you back here. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I'm so excited to start on my new day on Sundays in 2025 and just appreciate you guys being here with me. I also really enjoyed sharing some of my tips for protecting your plants when you have those freezing temperatures, and would love to hear from you guys too on what you do to protect your plants in your garden and share that information. So make sure to drop a line in the comments and just let me know what you guys do as well. I'd really appreciate it. All right, you guys, thank you so much again. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell so that you can be notified each time I upload a new video. All right, you guys, until next time, happy gardening and goodbye.